Hello designers! Today I'd like to tell you about safety for the bandsaw, the most used piece of equipment in our workshop, and a couple of tips on how to use it effectively. To begin with, there are 4 safety practices that we check before we turn the machine on, and then there are 3 safety procedures that we do while we have the machine on in order to keep ourselves very safe. The bandsaw is so named because it is made using a large band, almost like a rubber band. Inside there's a giant wheel that the saw blade goes around, and the wheel turns so the saw blade continually goes down to cut your wood. And that's why it's called a bandsaw. It's like a big metal rubber band that's been stretched. This is what we use to cut the wood, but we don't want all of that saw exposed for other things to get cut. So the very first safety practice before you start using the machine is to set the guard height to the exact height of the material that you are using. You do that by opening the black knob a 1/2 turn and then lowering using the silver wheel until it just touches the wood, and then back up a little bit, maybe 1/2 millimeter, a millimeter, just a tiny bit, and then a 1/2 turn again on the black knob to lock that guard in place so that it's just the right height to slide your wood under with no extra space for things bad to happen. And we set the guard height with the wood in sideways because there's this little knob at the bottom of the guard that can catch on your wood if you put the wood in front to back. So please be careful that you put the wood in sideways each time that you set it, and slide it to make sure that it's going to go through the way that you want it to go. Step number 2 on the bandsaw for safety is to go around the back and turn on the dust extraction. It's quite loud, so I'm not going to turn it on for this video, but you will come back and turn it on with the green switch, and then at the end you'll turn it off with the red switch there. Item number 3 is to check your piece of material for any metal. Especially if you got your piece out of the scrap pile, it may have been used by somebody for putting in brads or nails for practice. If it was attached to something else, someone may have left a screw in there. Make sure that you don't have any metal in your piece where you're going to cut before you get ready to go. 4th thing, make sure you have elbow room. Check your space, make sure you have about a mat's worth of space. Nobody's standing right by your elbows. You might have a partner standing here at the platform if you're cutting something large, but there should be nobody here to knock your elbow into the danger zone. So those are our 4 checks before we turn the machine on. Set the guard height, turn on the dust extractor, check your piece of wood, check your elbow space. Pause the video now and make sure you write those down in your safety passport. When you get ready to turn the machine on, there are 3 safety practices to remember to keep yourself safe while it's running. The first and most important safety practice is that you imagine that there is a straight line running out from the blade and nothing from your body ever crosses that line on the platform. So having a piece of wood here and putting your hands on both sides and running the piece of wood through the bandsaw is perfectly safe. Having the piece of wood and putting both hands on one side is perfectly safe. Having the piece of wood like this where my thumb is across the danger zone line, that is not okay. Having a piece like this, where my hand, or maybe just my arm, is on the platform and in the line of the saw, that's not okay. It's an easy fix to just readjust your body. So make sure nothing from you crosses that line. Step number 1. Number 2 has to do with turning the machine on. The step is, when you turn it on, wait for the machine to come up to speed. This is a big machine with large, heavy metal parts. So it does take a few seconds, 10 or 15 seconds, for it to come all the way up to speed before you can actually use it. You can check the speed by looking down here. There's a little blue and white chart that shows you wood is 2200 revolutions per minute, and that's what you should see, or thereabout, on the display. When you hit go, it will take a while for the machine to speed up to the point where it's just about 2200. I'm going to turn it off so that it's easier to listen. It is a very twitchy adjustment dial. A tiny movement on this adjustment dial can adjust that number quite a bit. So anywhere within 15 is plenty close enough for what we are doing. It does not need to be 2200 exactly. In fact, that's only happened about 4 or 5 times in the 4 years that I've been working here. Anything from about 2185 to about 2215 is plenty close enough. If it's outside that range, carefully and slowly adjust it to the point where it's right in 2200 or plus or minus 15. Third thing, once it's on and you're ready to stop, hit stop and then wait until you see the teeth of the saw blade. When you see the teeth, you know it is completely stopped. You can also look for the 0 on the panel. But the safest thing to do is to look at the teeth, because if it's moving even slightly, you will not see the teeth. They will be a blur. So when you see teeth there at the saw blade, you know it's stopped, and it's safe to reach in and take small parts out, move your piece out if it's in there still, walk around and turn off the dust extractor, which would be your last step in the process. Anything is safe after it's stopped. But if those teeth are not stopped, please do not move from the platform. Stay here and wait. It will only take a few seconds. So again, once you turn the machine on, your 3 steps are: nothing from your body crosses the line on the platform straight out from the saw blade. Wait for the machine to come all the way up to the listed speed for the material you're cutting, usually wood. And when you turn it off, wait to see the teeth. Pause the video again here and write those down in your safety passport, please. Now the last thing I'd like to show you are a couple of tools here on the back side of the saw that we can use to make this work very well for us. Usually when we use the bandsaw, we're wanting to make straight cuts, and that's what these 2 tools are about. The first tool hangs on a hook up here. It just goes through and hangs there. This is called a fence, and it's built so that it drops over this bar and onto the platform. And then it gives us a guide, this fence, to make straight cuts. So if the handle is up, you can slide it to adjust where you want your cut to go. And then once you have it lined up, push the handle down and the fence won't move anymore. Now there are 2 secrets to using the fence well. The first secret is where you put your attention. It's very important when you're using the fence that you pay attention to the wood touching the fence. The saw blade is not so important to look at when you're using the fence. You really want to make sure that your piece of wood stays flat to the fence. So your attention the whole time should be right along that fence edge. And the way that you're pushing is into the saw blade, but also into the fence to keep your piece flat against the fence. So you push in the whole time until you're all the way through, and you'll have a nice straight cut. The second trick or secret of using the fence is to go slowly, especially with plywood, which is quite hard. Lots of layers with glue in there. Go slowly, let the saw do its work, and you'll get a much straighter cut than if you try to push it through very quickly. The fence is good when you have a piece where you have a long straight edge to work with that you want to create a parallel cut to. The fence is not so good, in fact it's not very helpful at all, when you have a piece that has a very short straight edge you want to cut parallel to, or a long straight edge that you want to cut perpendicular to. So in this case, I would not get the fence out. I would leave that hanging. And instead, from the bottom here, I will take the miter. This is designed to cut 90 degrees as well as several other angles here. And you can double check as you take it out that it's set to 90 or whatever angle you want. If you need to adjust it, loosen the handle, spin the face where you need it to go, and then tighten the handle again. I'll set this back to 90. To use it, take the two little ears and slide them into the groove on the platform, and then take your piece and put the long straight edge against the face of the miter. Your job with the miter, and the trick or secret here, in addition to going slow, like with the fence, is to hold it hard against that face. If the miter is set to 90 degrees, the saw blade will then cut a perfect 90-degree cut when it's held flat against that face. So we carefully move it through, and we get a nice perpendicular cut to the face that was against the miter. When you're done, it just goes back in the slot in the yellow cubby on the side.